Hello, everyone. Onegaishimasu. So good morning or good evening, depending on where you are. First, I'll read the shokushu for you. Keep breathing. Keep breathing. The breath goes out, reaching everything in the universe and all of humanity. The breath comes in and falls into an infinitely small space in the lower abdomen. Keep breathing is the unknown practice that brings you to being one with the universe. If you do this alone at night, when the universe is calm and quiet, you will wonder if either you are the universe or if the universe is you. In other words, you will experience the ultimate joy of being one with the universe. Then the life energy of human being becomes fully active. Lately, I have noticed that some of the students have been struggling a little bit with keep breathing, keep meditation, and whole body meditation. So I think it's time to review those a little bit, which I'll do today. I think the most important thing to understand about any form of meditation, no matter what it is, the purpose is always to end suffering. In each moment, there is some degree of pleasure and some degree of pain, and sometimes both together, intermixed. Suffering is what happens when we react to the pleasure or pain, when we try to cling to the pleasure, or we are afraid we're going to lose the pleasure, or we long for some pleasure, or we try to avoid the pain. This avoidance and this clinging is called suffering. And so the purpose of our meditation is to end suffering, but it's not just to end suffering in meditation, it's to end suffering in our life. So when we begin to notice, as we pay attention in our meditation, as we begin to notice the mechanism within us that causes us to react to pleasure and pain and hence suffer, then we will also begin to notice that same mechanism at work in our daily life throughout moment to moment to moment. And as we begin to notice that mechanism at work and how it works and how often it works, and it's always unique to each one of us, of course, then that mechanism begins to lose its power over us. And then we're not so susceptible to suffering. So this is a lifelong process, of course, but well worth undertaking if you don't like to suffer. Okay, so we have three forms of meditation in our practice here. As I mentioned, key breathing, key meditation, a whole body meditation. Key breathing actually is broken into three different stages. So the first stage is called whole body breathing. And it's basically what Toi Sensei describes there in that shokushu. But we breathe in from the tips of our toes to the top of our head as if we're one big lung. So as we breathe in, we fill our air. We breathe in through our nose and fill our body with air all the way to the top of our head. And then there's a pause of 3 beats. And then we breathe out and empty this big body from the top of our head to the tip of our toes. That's basically whole body breathing. Excuse me. Now, in this class, I control the length of the breath with this sokuboku. And I keep it to 15 seconds in and 15 seconds out with 3 seconds in between. So it's 18 seconds, 18 seconds. You can breathe 5 seconds. You can breathe for 30 seconds in and out. Doesn't matter. Whatever you're comfortable doing. I picked 15 because that seems to work best for everyone. We have very advanced people that have been keep breathing for many, many years in this class. And we also have perhaps some very beginning people who have hardly practiced keep breathing at all. If the 15 seconds is too long for you and you're not able to keep up, that's okay. So take a couple of extra breaths and then begin again. So you do whatever you can do to keep up, right? Second level of keep breathing is when we lose the feeling of being encased in this body, in this bag of skin. And we realize we notice our feelings are not just within this body, but they appear to be everywhere. We can feel the whole room. You try it right now. You can feel the walls in your room. You can feel outside of your house. Yes? Yeah. So when we're breathing out, we allow the feeling to expand infinitely outward. And when we breathe in, we allow that same calm feeling to concentrate into our one point. So this is also key breathing. It's called universal breathing. And then there's one more level of breathing we call musoku. Mu means no, none, not any. Soku is breath. It doesn't mean that you stop breathing. No, of course you'll die if you stop breathing. Please don't stop breathing. It means no one is breathing. Only breathing is happening. Now, I want to say here, because I've heard a couple of people mention this. I've heard a couple of people say it occurs sometimes when I'm doing keep breathing that I didn't even know I was breathing or not. Okay, that happens because you're distracted, because you're off in yaya land. You are in a pleasure syndrome. That's not musoku. In musoku, you are intensely aware of being present or of a presence, and that presence is breathing, but it's just not your ego. It's not your small self doing something. It's a different phenomenon altogether. But I want to say that it's extremely intense, and still there is a very powerful feeling of presence. Okay, so let's do a little key breathing together, and then we can move on and do more. Okay, so please sit up straight. Okay. All right, so the second form of meditation that we do in Aikido is called ki meditation, Shinshu no Gyo, or ki no Ishiho. Oh, Toi Sensei like to call ki no Ishiho. I mean, Ichi is like willpower. Willpower in meditation means that ability we have to prevent ourselves from attempting to manipulate our future. That's willpower. So if, I think I explained in the training manual, if we have a big tub of water and it's all agitated, what's the best way to get it to calm down? We leave it alone. We don't get our hands in there and try to calm it down. Of course, that makes it more agitated. So that's common sense, yes, but not common sense for people within their own mind. When a mind is all gaja, and disturbed, we tend to suffer more. We disturb it more, trying to keep it from being disturbed. We try to avoid pain. We try to seek out pleasure. And this is the suffering. This is disturbance. This is what causes all the problems. So ishi, willpower, is what we use to just notice. Just be present, just be aware, and just notice what's arising, what's not arising. Okay, so in key meditation, the practice technically is to, I hit this bell, which you've heard so many times. And when I hit it, I either say kakudai-ho or shuchu-ho. Kakudai-ho means many-sided bigness. Kakudai-ho means many-sided bigness practice. So it means expansion, basically, in English, means extending. So we have this sense of calmness and stillness and peace, and we allow this to expand and fill the entire universe. And of course, the universe is infinite, so no end. So just continue filling. And then I'll hit again and say, shuchu-ho. Shuchu-ho means collecting, bringing together. So shuchu-ho is the practice of bringing together. Shuchu. So all of that calmness then, the entire infinite universe of calmness, excuse me, in shuchu-ho comes into our one point and becomes infinitely small there and continues infinitely smaller, but never disappears. So this practice is learning to follow the feeling of calmness, okay? This practice may seem like imagining bigger, smaller, but that's not it. It's not imagining. It's not a visualization practice. It's a feeling practice. Doi Sensei says, taught us that if we do this correctly, the feeling of kakudai-ho and the feeling of shuchu-ho is the same, not different. So this is how to tell if we're doing it correctly. But it's very obvious because it's just the feeling of infinite expansion and infinite contraction, which is the same. Both are the feeling of the unseen, the immeasurable, the untouchable, the unknowable. This is infinite. Infinite means cannot be measured. It means a size and shape that cannot be known. So we're practicing dwelling in or resting in the deep calmness of infinity. This is key meditation. All right, now we'll do some key meditation. Chuchulo. Okay. So this last form of meditation that we do in this class is called whole body meditation. So whole body meditation involves four centers in our body. The base center, or the first one we use, is called the one point in the lower abdomen. And it is just right at the top of your pubic bone there. And it's where all the weight of your upper body falls, right? Everybody knows one point in the lower abdomen. The second point is your heart, which the energetic center is in the center of your body, even though your physical heart is over here on your left side a little bit. The center we're talking about is right in the center of your chest. And then the third center is your throat, which is includes your lower jaw and your ears and the back of your head. Oh, sorry. And then the fourth center is this point between your eyes that we call tente in Japanese, or in Sanskrit is ajna. And this point between your eyebrows, actually, includes, of course, the rest of the top of your head and beyond. So traditionally, let's just say it this way, traditionally in spiritual practice and meditation practice, the point between your eyes and the one point in the lower abdomen are one, must be same. The ultimate experience is to experience those both at the same time, vis-a-vis our breath. So that's basically what we're doing as we begin by breathing into our one point. You can just do this with me while I describe it, so you can, if you're not familiar. That's right. Just breathe deeply down. It's like you're massaging your one point with your breath. And of course, your one point, then you can feel all the way down to the tips of your toes. So it includes your toes, your feet, your ankles, your calves, your knees, your thighs, your genitals, your hips, your buttocks. And all this is centered in the one point. So all of the feeling of those areas is included in the one point in the lower abdomen. And as we do this, and the length of time really doesn't matter. You can move, if you have a lot of experience, you might want to move through these centers quickly or slowly. If you haven't had a lot of experience, then maybe try to stay 5 minutes in each area, if you can. But once you feel like you're really in your one point and breathing into your one point, then you expand that feeling and continue breathing into your heart area. So now you're breathing in your heart and your one point together. And of course, when you're in your heart, that means your shoulders and your arms and your hands and your fingers and your fingertips. All of this, the whole thorax and all your arms and hands are included. So now when you're breathing in everything from your chest to the tips of your toes. And these two centers have become one. As that begins to mature, then you move on to your throat. And you can feel this like a bowl, at the very base of which is your larynx. And then the bowl is your mouth and the back of your head and your ears. And that bowl captures all the sound in the universe, shabda, and emits all the sound. This is the center of sound. So this is where we learn to listen, and this is where we learn to speak. So our speech, and learning to speak, I don't mean like when you're a child and you learn to speak your language. That's not what I mean by learning to speak. I mean, we learn to be aware of what is being said as it's being said, like a surprise. And we learn to understand what's being heard as it's being heard, like a surprise. So anyway, we then breathe. Now we're breathing into this bowl as well. Yeah, you can feel that. And then once this is amalgamated, homogenized, brought together, then we can go to the point between our eyebrows. And of course, this includes everything in the upper part of our head. And right away, I hope you can feel the breath, as the breath vibrates or touches here in the tente, it's also touching the one point of the lower abdomen and everything in between. So let's do this, a practice, for a few moments. Okay, so I have left a little bit more time than usual because I'm sure that you must have questions about one of these forms or more than one of these forms of practice. And if you might have a question, then please ask me now. Or you can tell me about, what's happening in your practice. Yes, Kayomi.
Good morning, Sensei. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I have a question about the key breathing. You mentioned 3 kinds of key breathing, and from whole body meditation breathing to universal breathing. Does it shift automatically as I practice, or I need to intentionally breathe?
No, it's automatic, and the breathing doesn't change. The breathing itself stays the same, of course, but only from my experience, I can say that I just found myself not only inside the body anymore. And I had heard Toi Sensei speak about universal breathing, and it sounded like really cool, but I didn't know what that meant. So I didn't have any way to practice it. I didn't know what to do. But just one morning, I just noticed that I think it was already happening, but I just didn't notice. Maybe I was working to try to do key breathing correctly or something like that. Sometimes our attention is caught up in that. And then as I relaxed and allowed it to happen, then I realized, oh, this is the same as, well, universal breathing is the same as key meditation, except it has breathing in it. It has intentional breathing, whereas a key meditation, of course, doesn't.
Thank you, Sensei. That was my second question. What's the difference between key meditation, Shujuho Kaktaiho, and the universal breathing? Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right, someone else? There's some people from Odd Vogel Sensei's key class here. I would like to hear from you too. Don't be shy. We're all friends here. You can ask whatever you'd like.
Sorry, I have maybe some problems with internet.
Yes, Alexa.
Hello, good evening, good morning, everybody. I still have a question about key meditation, and you just told that this is not imagination of enlarging, yeah, but I'm still puzzled how, can you tell a little bit about if it's, we shouldn't imagine how we, I don't know, grow,
okay.
And
yes.
vice versa.
Yes. Okay, so what we mean when we say it's not imagination is it's not imagining a form. For instance, when I used to do it in the beginning, I thought, well, I'll take this sphere and make it get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So then I'm all wrapped up in the sphere. I'm not experiencing anything except my imagination of this sphere getting bigger and then getting smaller. So that's what I mean by it's not imagination. Now, imagination in English means imagining, imaging, right? Image. So creating an image in your mind. So that it's not creating an image in your mind. And even sometimes we say the word visualizing, which means it's basically the same thing. It means you're visually imagining something, visualizing. You're seeing something in your mind's eye. So we want to avoid the image part of it. So instead, we feel. The feeling we have, let's say the feeling of presence or the feeling of peace or the feeling of calmness, the feeling that we have, we allow to expand. We notice that it's not just here. In fact, there's no limitation to it. It can be everywhere, this feeling. But at the same time, this feeling can also be intensely focused within us. This is Kakudayo Shujuho. Does that help?
Yes, a little bit, but still some.
Yes, and if, I mean, I did imagining for 20 years at least, because I didn't know any better. Nobody told me. I mean, maybe I was told, but I didn't understand. Doi Sensei would always say, oh, they're the same. And they're not the same if you imagine. They're quite different. Yeah. In other words, if you're imagining, okay, let me put this differently. If you're using an image, that means you're actually locking yourself into the relative world of measurable object. Bigger, 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 bigger. And this exercise is to break free of that. So that it's dead wrong. It's completely backwards to imagine something, an image, because that's relative. Do you know what I mean by relative? It's a scene. It's the seen thing. It's the measurable thing. It's the known thing. It's the comfortable thing. Okay? We know about it. We know how to do it. But this is to help us break free of seeing only that way. It's okay to see things that way because that's how we get by in the world, but not only that way. Things are not only that way. If we look very closely at anything, it becomes infinite. And whether it's far away or close. You know, like when I was a boy, my dad told me, I said to him, we were lying up in the mountains outside in our sleeping bags at night. And I said, wow, because it's so bright. You know, we were at 13,000 feet and it's just incredibly bright. You don't know if you live in a city how much light there is up there. And I said, wow, how far do you suppose that goes? And he said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, I don't know. And he said, yeah, that's the point. Don't ever forget that. You can't know. That's infinite. That which is infinite, we cannot know in or measure in the way that we know something that's we can get our hands on, that we can touch. We think this is knowing, but actually a physicist will tell you that's not what's happening when you grab something. It's not there in that way. And only your senses tell you that. Our senses are made so we can function in this dimension. But actually there's something much more profound happening in every moment. And the words we have for it are inadequate. So we use a word like infinity because it points to that which is unknowable. It points to that which is immeasurable, impossible to see, smell, touch, feel, hear. Infinite. So meditation practice, so I said purpose of meditation practice is to end suffering. Suffering is our clinging to the relative exclusively. That's suffering. Okay? So that's reacting to all pleasure and pain. Right? Of trying to avoid the pain and trying to hang on to the pleasure. That's suffering. Or sometimes we say struggle. So when we're struggling with something, that's suffering. So instead we say, let go of that. And the key to this is being in our feeling body, the subtle feeling body. And then we can experience that which is unapproachable with our senses. So that's putting an end to suffering. And like I said, I'm talking about meditation right now. But as we move into daily life, and when we learn in meditation, when we learn the mechanism that causes us to react to either suffer a pain or pleasure, and hence suffer, when we learn that mechanism and really get to know it well through our noticing, through our awareness, then we'll see it constantly in daily life. So then we're basically practicing all the time. That's what life becomes. That's when life becomes practice. Okay? That was a lot more than you asked. But that's actually a really good question. Everyone has this question. So I'm glad you asked me.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you, Alexei. All right, I started to say, if some of you from Odd Vogel's Sensei's key class would like to ask something, please feel free. Or
Good evening.
Else.
Good evening, Sensei.
Yes,
and everyone.
Hello. What's your name?
Marlene.
Marlene, okay.
I'm a beginner, so thank you for the explanation. My breathing in is much shorter than my breathing out. So is it important to have it the same, or it doesn't matter?
Well, it's interesting because it's, you know, when I'm teaching, I teach a meditation workshop several times a year. And I always ask when the beginners finish their first breathing session, do they find breathing in easier or breathing out easier? And half of them say in and half of them say out. So it depends on the person. Which one do you find? Does that mean you find breathing out easier if it's longer than breathing in?
Yes.
Yes. So that's because when you're breathing in, you still have tension in your body. Of course, that's what makes it shorter breath. So the answer to your question is practice.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it a lot. It's not that you should have the same, but you will have the same at some point. But right now, you should have exactly what you are having. And if you practice, then you will learn your body will show you how to relax and what it is to let go. There'll be things in your body that you were like, well, I never noticed that was even there. Yeah, because you become so attuned to your feeling body. And when we're in our feeling body, then we can, instead of our thinking body, when we're in our feeling body, then true relaxation and calmness can come about. And as we have that, the more we have, then the easier it is to breathe in and out. Sometimes I'm supposed to do 15 in and 15 out, but sometimes I noticed today I did it once. I'm just enjoying breathing out so much that it becomes 18, 19, 20. And then, oh, sorry. Because that means I lost my discipline for a moment. I was drawn into the pleasure of deep relaxation. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not why we're doing it. We're not doing this to have pleasure. We're doing this to end suffering. Means we're doing this to end what is causing the tension in your body. So it's really worth practicing. Please practice.
I will.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Someone else.
Hello.
Hello. Speak.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, my English is not very well, but I really enjoyed the last explanation about the whole body meditation. That it was very a lot of detail how you explained it, and I find it very nice. So thank you for that.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Did you enjoy doing it?
Yes. I learned a lot in a very short time.
Yeah, it's very revealing. This is
Yes.
these are the very centers that, how to say this, cause all the problems and solve all the problems. So
Yes.
if we can relax and enjoy this kind of calmness in our whole body like this, that's why I called it whole body meditation. Yeah. I learned this not in Aikido, actually. I learned this when I did a 3-year meditation retreat when I was 26 years old. So for 3 years, I sat. And then my teacher taught this to me. But it wasn't exactly like this, but because of Toi Sensei's teaching, then I sort of put it together. And then for 40 years, I've been practicing this whole body meditation. And it was only about maybe 5 or 6 years ago that I began teaching it to the students because someone, well, I still have a teacher, and he said, "Why aren't you teaching this to your students? That's not fair." So I started sharing it with everybody, and everyone seems to recognize the value of it. I'm glad to hear that you do.
Yes.
And I appreciate you coming and taking part in this, even though maybe it's hard to understand me, but I'm still glad that you come. And you're very fortunate to have Advogel Sensei as your teacher over there. He's very advanced. He asks the best questions of anyone I ever met. Don't tell him I said that. Oh, I think he's here. Uh-oh. Okay.
No, I won't tell him.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Someone else? Anybody want to say anything? We have just a few more minutes. Please take advantage. Don't be shy.
Sensei.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Hello. I just want to share with you the fact that when I'm reading, doing key breathing, when I'm not feeling the body, the time becomes very long. Is when I can't finish or I can match the time. But I feel that when I'm following my body and feeling all the body, like if my breath could go longer and longer and longer. And I've learned that in these classes on Sunday. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah.
It's been my experience for the last classes, that if I follow all the body all the way through from toes to head and then go down and concentrate and be present in that, I can go all the way. If not, in the middle, I'm just trying to change or waiting for the sound to change, just that.
So just in case people don't know, this is Roger from Spain. So he is Gandia Sensei's student, and his English, of course, is very good. So we're happy that he can be with us, and his wife also, but I think no English, maybe, or a little bit English. So I'm glad that you shared that with us. It's so clear, isn't it, when we begin to practice, we begin to see what causes all of our suffering. And when we can see what brings it about, in other words, I called it the mechanism, and that's just sort of a mechanical term, but you know, when we really become closely familiar with what it is that pushes our buttons, or well, it's the pain and the pleasure that pushes the buttons, but what allows us to become reactive and suffer brings tension into our body. And so when we're doing key breathing, it's really obvious. If we have tension, we just can't do it. And when we have a deep sense of calmness, which means, by the way, that you're paying very close attention. When your attention is really laser focused, when your attention is really present, then that side effect of that attention is calmness. So if you're having trouble with attention, you're at the same time you are having trouble with attention, with paying attention, or with your awareness. So you don't have to, we say pay attention in English, but it's more like resting your awareness on maybe an area in your body that has some tension. Or just resting your awareness in your whole body. And then, something changes. And you're no longer suffering. It doesn't mean you're having great pleasure, by the way. Suffering and pleasure are not opposites. Pleasure and pain are opposites. And you can't do anything about them. They come and they go. But suffering is not done to you. So don't misuse that word. You do suffering. No one causes you to suffer. Only you cause you to suffer. Someone may cause you pain or give you pleasure, but they don't make you suffer. Suffering is your reaction. And so when we feed something in ourselves, see, when we tell stories to ourselves, when we revel in hating something or someone, or when we revel in desiring something or someone, so this is suffering. This is actually encouraging ourselves to suffer more. It's kind of crazy, actually, isn't it? But we do this, but only because we are ignorant. We're not aware. So meditation is incredibly valuable because it's just the time we're able to sit still and pay attention and learn about these things that I'm talking about. Learn about this mechanism of suffering within us. No one can really point to it like you can. It's your body, it's your feeling, it's your mind, it's your suffering, or it's your calmness. Okay? Thank you very much for coming and being with me today. Domo arigatou gozaimashita. Aloha.